Yes, we are in Durban, in Umhlanga. No, you would know exactly where that is. And yeah, we have been up and about because the program is experiential. So we've been all over.
Yes, I could tell. I could tell. I suppose that's the whole point, of bringing them over so that they can have a full experience, and it's busy. So I appreciate you making this time. I really do. I know it's not easy, juggling students and everybody you
That's
want to see
correct.
because you're also home, right?
That's very true. I've already, I think I would like to apologize to the people that are going to watch this, my people. I mean, so you know when I'm coming back again. So yeah, you're very right, Sissy. Oh, you're so right.
But it's good to be home. When you get back, you'll be rejuvenated and
That
and
is
ready
true.
and ready to take on the world.
Yeah,
Um,
that is very true. There's a calming in effect to being here. You get to fall in love with as you've seen, you are well traveled yourself, so you know exactly the feeling of falling in love with your country again and its people, its rhythms. So it's been a wonderful experience for not only my students but myself as a son of this soil.
yes. Well, welcome home. Welcome home. Welcome home. And thank you for the wonderful work that you do. Honestly, I am so proud of your work. Um, and because it's also important for South Africans to see what you're doing in the United States outside of America, outside of the continent. And because sometimes people think indigenous languages are only for us, they're not going to take you anywhere. And so by the work that you're doing, you're proving that it is for the world, right?
Yes, it is.
That
Yes, it
you
is.
it does have a benefit. It's not just something that must be left to die. So I want to commend you for taking the work abroad,
No, thank
and
you.
doing,
Thank you, sis.
because it's also feeding into the people here to gain a broader understanding. And the book with the Zulu Proverbs, we don't have it yet, but certainly we're advertising it, and we definitely want to get a hold of it. And so thank you. So I'd like you to introduce yourselves, because you can do it, you're the best to introduce yourselves and why you do what you do in the US.
Yeah. Well, I'm Phiwokuhle Mnyandu. Right now I'm at Howard University. I'm assistant director of the Center for African Studies. But how I got there was when I was doing my I went to Missouri for my master's, and I met my RA, and RA is the person in the dorm. So that's my wife right there. One of the so one of the best things actually that America gave me was a wife, a partner, and I didn't know that later on this person would be a business partner and the brains behind most of what I do actually.
Wow.
So I hit a jackpot when I married them.
You did,
Just
my brother. You did.
the whole brain power. Like,
You did.
so that, and it's like compound interest. It gets better with time,
Oh, I
so
love it. This is also a free
yeah.
marriage advert.
Yeah. If anyone is watching, you need to marry your superior mentally, and you'll never go wrong. So then when I was doing my PhD research, African studies, I did two things converged. I'm interested in China-Africa relations.
Yes, I saw
And
that.
to fund my PhD research, they were looking for a Zulu speaker. And
Wow.
I did an interview. I didn't do
Wow.
anything. All I had was my language
Wow.
that my grandmother had helped me preserve by not allowing us to speak English at our house. Check. And so my grandmother came through for me, and I funded my PhD through that. Well, two things took place then. Yeah, so PhD, thank Yabonga Koko. But that gave me a realization, right? That, well, hold on, why are they studying Zulu in America? And they were studying Zulu for machine learning, which means money and business, not to worship the language, not to be doing things. I was, whoa, okay. And then I went to China, and I found that the Chinese have a whole bunch of schools for African art, and they're now learning African languages, so that next time this phone is in isiZulu, it's gonna be from China. So
Wow.
there's a nexus of global competition between the East and the West, and the African languages are smack dab in the middle of it. So basically, I had no choice, in other words, than to delve deeper into language use. And we found a niche that many of our people, they always look at languages as, well, first language speakers. That's where the material is. And the other tourist language, what we found that the middle ground is not there. That's what Deseray actually kind of led us into doing. So the whole bunch of it become a symbiosis that is very much dedicated to the Zulu language, but not, as you've said at the beginning, you said it so well, but not as just a vessel, but as actually a tool for economic empowerment.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean,
And
you
here we
are
are.
living proof. And wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
to think that it was, it was Chinese who, and it gave you access to a scholarship. That is just phenomenal. So thank you. So could you please tell us more about, actually, I'd like Deseray to say something.
Sure. I can introduce, I'm Deseray Mnyandu. I'm Dr. Mnyandu's wife. And yes, I was his RA. We just celebrated our anniversary. So yes, this is from abroad. That's probably why he's so gushing, is he's far away.
and I had flowers waiting for me at the hotel to celebrate 11 years of marriage. So that was
wow.
Yes.
When was this?
The second. Yeah. Well,
when?
Okay.
Oh,
just 4 days ago.
Today. Oh wow! Well,
July 2nd.
congratulations! Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm part of the celebration.
Right?
I know, right? You have no choice.
Oh, you're in it. You're here now. So
I love it.
Yeah. So one of the things that I noticed about Phiwo, when we first met, is just how passionate he was about his country and his language. And he made very sure to let me know, if we're going to be in a relationship, you need to know I'm moving back to my country. I love South Africa. I'm not staying in America forever. And you need to be okay with that. And I said, I'm okay with that. That's fine. So from that point on, it was a go. So, and he never let up on it. In fact, now that we have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, it has intensified his love for languages. And, me as their mother, and my first language being English, I can't, there's a limitation for me being able to teach them isiZulu. So we came up together with some different ways to teach them, and him using what he's learned, how to teach adult students, and us kind of converging that with how we teach our children, and then seeing that there's actually a real desire, a real want for South Africans who are outside of South Africa, who want to learn Zulu, who want that nostalgia, that piece of home. As we were speaking earlier, we were saying, there's not a lot of South Africans outside of South Africa, but when you find them, you just, you keep them close.
That's true.
And, every time that we meet with any South African, whether they're Zulu or Xhosa or Pedi, like they are just so happy to see us and so happy about the work that we're doing. And it just converged at the right time. His work with the students, my work with the children,
and your work, Sissy, and your work.
Yes, and your work. And us coming together and saying, wow, this is not just something that's isolated. It's not just Zulu people who want to know Zulu. It's people everywhere. And so we decided to jump on that train and just take it forward.
Thank you so much. And you mentioned a really important element where your children also inspired you to teach it to the children, because that's something that we're finding in South Africa. I mean, you think you're doing it for people overseas, but the work you're doing actually is really important for South Africans, because what's happening is South Africans are, we've got 11 indigenous languages that we use, 11 languages, official languages. But what's happening is more and more people are starting to raise their children speaking English. They go to English-speaking schools. And part of that is also because the private schools don't provide the best, they don't teach in isiZulu or Xhosa or, you know, all the various, or Sesotho in the private school, they teach in English. So then the children who are born in those environments become English speaking, monolingual, which is terrible, you know, because South Africa is a multilingual. Yes. So the work you're doing, you might think you're doing it for internationals, but you're actually doing it for South Africans as well. I can tell you that. Because on our platform, you know, it's mainly South Africans, and they, you know, they responded to the Zulu Proverbs because, you know, there's a South African, they want to. It's their language. They want to know the proverbs. So please tell us about the Zulu Proverbs. How did you collect the material? How did you use it? You know, how did you gather the information?
Well, it actually started with Phiwo. When he's speaking, he translates everything so literally. So, you know, if he's talking to his brother or, you know, anyone back home, he'll say something and then I'll say, you know, ask, what did you say? And then he'll literally translate it. I'll say, that doesn't make any sense. Please explain it.
Yes.
And so he kept doing that, you know, throughout our time together. And I said, you know what, you guys should just kind of write these things down, him and his brother. And eventually I guess no one was really taking it seriously, but I just came up with a notebook and I said, you know what, every time you say something that makes no sense to me, I'm going to write it down. And that was maybe 3 years ago. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So 3 years ago, I just started every time he would say something that was a proverb or a saying that just kind of I couldn't understand, I would write it down. And then later on, I would ask him, like, what does this mean? And what context do you use it in? And so over those 3 years, I came up with hundreds.
Wow.
Hundreds of different
so this is, so you collected this just spontaneously over conversation.
This was book one. Yeah, so this was, I said, like, years and years in the making. This is book one. We are definitely having a book 2 and book 3. So you're the first one to know that. We did collect many proverbs, and we have the meanings, the definitions, and we're just taking our time over just normal conversation and, you know, just saying, wow, that sounds interesting. And of course, you know, when Phiwo says it, it doesn't register as something abstract. It doesn't register as something like, oh, that's different, that I should add that to the book. But we're a great team together because, you know, I hear it and it doesn't make sense to me because I'm an American.
This is brilliant. Absolutely.
About it. So, oh, actually, yeah, that does not make a lot of sense to say it in English. So we write those things down, and we're currently sitting on about 300 other proverbs that will eventually be published. But yes, so this is our first Proverbs book, and it just came out, and we're really excited and we're really proud and happy to share it with everyone.
Wow.
Well, remember, in my household, my grandmother was a teacher and my grandfather was a teacher, and they spoke, and so in our household, proverbs were a way of teaching you stuff. As in many households, probably yours as well, with the work you do. So for example, and then there were these aphorisms, these expressions that were only in my house, that I said, I just don't want to be the last one in my line of lineage to use these. And not only do I not want to just teach them to my children, then Deseray said, well, why don't we just do a book then and teach everyone? And I'll give you 2 examples. One is, when someone calls you and say, where have I washed today? Which river did I wash in today? So Deseray started speaking like that. My brother was like, hey, how do you know that?
Oh, yes. My brother-in-law would call and I say, oh, where did I wash today? And he said, what?
What do you know about that?
Why are you saying that?
Yeah, because it's an inside thing. So we said we need to spread it, make it understandable to the Americans and our South Africans who don't speak isiZulu or who are no longer speak it, and give it access and be gateways and not gatekeep the language. Another one would be like, is like, would sit at my house in D section, umlazi, gogo and mother. They would look across the valley at B section and see someone like using like some rake that everyone is using. which means it's a common thing. So Gogo would say, hey, rake. It's Mrs. Frog, literally translated, who doesn't have that rake. Then Deseray came in and I was able to explain this because I don't want this wisdom from my grandmother or my wise grandmother to be lost.
Brilliant, 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 brilliant. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because we've just, I mean, I love that your proverbs, they come from a history of grandparents were teachers, and it's just immersed in your grandparents insisting on you speaking isiZulu. It's just so powerful because it also comes from your whole storyline, and it's just, and the fact that you noted those proverbs and you wrote them down, it's also phenomenal because it's like how many of those you use. It's impressive.
Oh, yeah. He uses all of them.
It's impressive.
Well, I think it was from nostalgia, being away from South Africa.
Yes.
One of my biggest obsessions was I never wanted to lose the language and how I speak it. And so the things I could hold on to best were those things because they kind of still they represented Zulu. So that's why.
So he held on to it voraciously. He wasn't going to let go.
And thankfully, he has a wife who also made sure, I want to know what you say.
Yes, for sure.
Well, I think we're going to land our conversation. I'm so thankful. I've been so intrigued by the two of you for such a long time and really admired your work.
As have we with you.
Oh, for sure.
By the way, I'm speaking from the Eastern Cape. We speak isiXhosa here.
I know that. Well, you don't need to tell me that. I put Deseray because we were like, we are not seeing who this person is, but let's see. I said, okay, let's do some detective work. All the conferences that she's in, I think the isiXhosa kind of is like all over the place. I said, okay, well, isiXhosa, and in my house, by the way, because my mother had roommates from the Eastern Cape, isiXhosa was actually valued higher than isiZulu as a beautiful language. So my mother gave a love of the isiXhosa language as a beautiful language. Sorry, my Zulu people, but she said it's just beautiful. So when I found this, because I said, this right here she's an isiXhosa expert.
Well, part of it, I mean, a lot of the work that we normally do, it's usually Cape Town, so Cape Town universities are usually, if they're presenting papers, they're usually going to be Xhosa. But I recently went to Pretoria. So in Pretoria, it's quite wider. And maybe some things I might not be able to write properly and I'll be intimidated because maybe I don't speak Sesotho that well. And so, but as Xhosa, it's very easy to, or Zulu, it's much easier for me to just write and, of what's being said and capture it. So I am so I've been wanting to speak to you guys forever. And I'm really sad I haven't met you in person, but this makes up for it.